Ever wondered how Satoru Gojo would fare without the Limitless, or how strong Kusakabe would be in a world devoid of curse techniques? Today we are going to find the answer to the most important question you never asked. Hey guys, it's Ryugo here, and today we are going to put the strongest sorcerers of the Jujutsu history to the test by figuring out who is the strongest character without their most valuable asset, their curse techniques. The way we are going to do this is the most classical way a shonen can, a tournament arc, in which the winner will then go out to face against the strongest character of history, Sukuna. This tournament will prohibit all curse techniques and everything surrounding them, including reverse techniques and even domain expansions, with everything else being allowed, including Shikigami, curse tools, and even non-techniques. With the story establishing pretty clearly that Sukuna is the strongest in history, he might have to look out for these 8 contestants that are going for his head. These 8 are the cream of the crop in sorcery fighting, even without access to a curse technique. Starting off, we have our favorites to win, Kashimo, Toji, and Maki. These are the obvious picks, as they are the most used fighting without a curse technique for various reasons and still are up to the level of the special grades. Speaking of which, we have our next batch is Yuji, Gojo, and Yuta. All of these guys have something that allows them to compete even without access to a curse technique. Starting with Gojo, he has access to the 6 eyes that let him have the best efficiency in the story and a very powerful RCT. Yuta, of course, has a lovely girlfriend and even bigger pool of cursed energy than Gojo. And finally Yuji, which can almost magically spawn black flashes, having a body similar to Maki and even having total understanding of the soul. And you might be surprised to know our final contestants, but before that, let me show you some people you thought might be here but unfortunately aren't. Kinji Hakari. It isn't that I think that Hakari is weak. Unlike most of the fanbase, I think base Hakari is stronger than most people realize, with his base being a master of hand-to-hand with a sharp edge to it. It's just that everyone else on this tournament has something else to carrying them besides a curse technique. Kenjaku. In hand-to-hand, Kenjaku is nothing to scoff at, being able to go toe-to-toe with Yuki, Choso and Garuda all at the same time, and he is also the character on the list with the most experience in both hand-to-hand and sorcery. But the thing is, Kenjaku is more of a spellcaster rather than a hand-to-hand fighter. The way Kenjaku fights is too involved with cursed spirit manipulation, to the point he doesn't have other complementary things like cursed tools or Shikigami. And speaking of which, Yuki Tsukumo. Having the most potential out of everyone in honorable mentions, Yuki is probably the only sorcerer that could probably be replaced with a certain character on the actual tournament. Having an actual Shikigami already solves her problem of not being able to use her curse technique. Add to that her ability to use RCT and probably having the ability to hit the soul, and Yuki becomes a sure contestant here. Only reason why she is on a tournament is because our last 2 contestants are simply suited better for the circumstances of this tournament. And one of our last contestants is actually Kusakabe. Yes, the strongest grade 1 is over Yuki, Kenjaku and Hakari, and that's because of one single factor: experience. The reason why Kashimo, Toji and Maki are the favorites to win is simply because they have the most experience fighting without the use of a cursed technique, as that's their natural way of fighting. And that's why Kusakabe is on the list. Although his kit is limited, he still more has experience fighting without a technique. And our final contestant might be of a surprise, as he's an underrated character in the community. Ryu Ishigori. The reason why he's here is because besides having the biggest output of raw cursed energy in history, Ryu can use Granite Blast regardless of having his cursed energy active, meaning that Ryu is perfect for our conditions here. And that's our 8 fighters. Make your bets in the comments as who do you think will go on to fight Sukuna. And without further ado, let's start the first round of the tournament, with our first round being Ryu Ishigori vs Yuta Okotsu, Maki Zenin vs Yuji Itadori, Hajime Kashimo vs Kusakabe, and Satoru Gojo vs Toji Zenin. As you might see, we have 2 rematches of the century, the clash of the War Gods and the underdog going up against the leading champion. Starting off with the rematch of the century, Yuta vs Ryu is quite contentious, as rereading the Sendai 3-way, I was surprised to see how close Yuta was to actually losing, having to outsmart Ryu with his copy, in which this tournament he won't have. So how do our contestants stack? Using end of series Yuta, he comes quite strong, having a giant pool of cursed energy, a Queen of Curses so strong that it can fight Sukuna while being partially manifested, and also plenty of cursed tools that unfortunately we don't know too much about. As for Ryu, he quite literally confirmed to have a better defense than Yuta, also shown to be quite powerful at hand-to-hand thanks to his incredible output, which also will allow him to have a better range as his attacks can even hurt a full-powered Rika, being completely capable outright destroying a partially manifested Rika. So, what would the battle would look like? Well, it's no surprise that Ryu has the advantage here. He has both the range and the firepower to do so. But Yuta isn't an idiot. His main priority should be to put Ryu in a 2v1 where he can Jujutsu jump him. But the thing is, even at close range, Ryu is quite the threat. His incredible output isn't limited to long-range attacks. Hand-to-hand isn't quite optimal for Yuta here. Remember that this guy was recognized by Sukuna himself as having quite the sturdy body. However, the queen and her prince still have a chance of victory here. Partially manifested Rika was strong enough to fight Sukuna and not be immediately one-shot by him, which means she can now fight off Ryu quite comfortably. And Rika is the key here. The way I see this battle going is that both would be in a damage race without a curse technique, immediately putting Yuta in a disadvantage. However, the more the fight goes on, the more it squeezes to Yuta's favor. He has quite more cursed energy than Ryu and can quite literally refill it by fully summoning Rika. In other words, the battle would end similarly to Kashimo vs Hakari. It would just be a matter of time until Ryu runs out of cursed energy, ironically enough. Having the highest output would also contribute to this. At that point, Yuta could quite easily defeat him, so Yuta wins the first round, mid to hard difficulty. Another interesting matchup would be Yuji vs Maki, and the reason this is so interesting is how contentious Yuji's strength is at the end of the series. I will be real guys, I don't think Yuji surpassed the heavy hitters. Heck, I don't think he is even top 5, as the only reason he survived so long against Sukuna is mostly because of him being the perfect counter against him. So what we have is a battle of two fighters with similar stats and almost the same hacks. In other words, we need to look at the very minute details. At first, this seems like it comes out either way, with both being able to hurt each other to the very soul. However, Yuji comes out slightly ahead as his RCT started off weak, but through his fight against Sukuna kept evolving over and over again, meaning that Yuji can heal whatever damage Maki dishes out, as Maki, although having an healing factor that has been proven to be quite slow. Add to that other small factors like Yuji being prone to the black flashes, and the possibility of outright disarming Maki, and the scales slightly tilt to Yuji's favor. This is by no means an easy battle, and Maki can quite literally get her way. I still think that Yuji comes out slightly ahead, in an extreme diff win for Yuji. Next up we have Kashimo vs Kusakabe, and what I first thought was a clear and cut victory in Kashimo's favor quickly turned into the most surprising matchup of the tournament. This is quite literally the battle of the strongest lance versus the invincible shield. Kashimo has the advantage of being faster, having a better killing option, with the advantage of having a passive skill in hand-to-hand due to his powerful trait. Meanwhile, Kusakabe falls short in almost everything. Then why I'm saying this is closer than expected? Well, Kusakabe is one of those guys that seems he's going to be one-shotted but always manages to deliver. Being capable of deflecting both Uzumaki and Sukuna slashes puts Kusakabe's defenses up there with the best of the best. Add to that to the fact that new Shadow style is a fully automatic means that Kusakabe might be one of the only characters that can defend against Kashimo's sure hit lightning. And when we add to that Kashimo somehow never has been confirmed to have RCT, and suddenly Kusakabe becomes quite a nuisance. Having said that, this is still a Kashimo W. All he needs is one opening and Kusakabe is suddenly cooked. Kashimo is faster and can quickly pile on attacks that are imbued with electricity with damage and stun his enemies. Also add to that Kashimo can put a positive charge on his staff, and suddenly Kusakabe is taking a massive damage in a very short amount of time. So although Kusakabe would give Kashimo some trouble, Sukuna's Stalker still comes out on top. And finally, if Ryu vs Yuta was the rematch of the century, then Toji vs Gojo is the rematch of the millennium. Let me just start by saying that there's a reason Toji is still in power scaling discussions to this day, and that is, Gege really loves to dig right. I mean, he has the stats to back it up. Can he come out on top against his one and only failure, now that Gojo doesn't have the limitless? Let's compare them both. In terms of stats, it doesn't surprise nobody that Gojo takes everything. Speed, strength, and durability are all things that he's mastered through cursed energy reinforcement alone. Meanwhile, Toji takes hacks, through the Soul Split Katana, his flyheads, and the Shade of 1,000 Miles, as well as a buttload of guns. This is ironically a matchup where the Hex Merchant is carried by Stats and the Stats Merchant is carried by Hex. And you might think that Gojo takes this because, well, he's Gojo, but before you say something, Toji is Toji. He isn't afraid to fight dirty. This man literally has no shame. If he needs to disguise himself as a woman, he will do that, no questions asked. Having access to fly hats, which allows him to obscure his presence, could allow Toji the split second he needs to do some fatal damage. But Gojo counters this by having one of the best RCTs in the series, only behind Jackpot Hakari, which means that he can heal through everything that Toji can dish out, making Toji's arsenal worthless, except for one, the Soul Split Katana. Again, Toji has the upper hand here. Having access to unhealable damage means that he can take as much time as he needs to slowly chip away at Gojo until he can secure a clean kill. So that's it? Will Gojo lose? Well, Gojo still has one weapon that he can use to fight off Toji, and it's quite literally his only option, and that is Falling Blossom Emotion. His one technique turns this from a Toji slaughterfest to a duel at high noon. Gojo's only win condition is to disarm Toji, as taking away the Soul Splitter basically lets him win, as his RTC can quickly heal any other damage Toji can dish out. So, who wins this quick draw? It's a contest of speed and reflexes, most of all. Well, in that case, Gojo wins. Falling Blossom Emotion is an automatic counter, meaning that the moment the Soul Split Katana enters in contact with Gojo, it will automatically react. And as if we established, Gojo is faster, so if he can disarm Toji, as we said before, that's his only win con here. So in other words, even without his greatest weapon, the Honored One still comes on top against a Sorcerer Killer in a very close, high-diff fight. But can Gojo stand up against the God of Lightning? And which of our main characters is truly the strongest? Find out next week as we finally decide the winner of our tournament and if said winner has what it takes to take down the strongest sorcerer in history.